Okay, so we're going to go over the two main parts of this animation, which is, I think, the two parts that are the hardest for people and probably we can glean the most insight from, which is how I animated the legs and how I animated the shoes. That like 3D perspective shift. How'd I do that? So that's what we're gonna go over today. If we have time, we'll move on to like the body, the head, but I think we're probably gonna spend quite a bit of time just talking about how I animated the legs and the shoes. So with that being said, let's jump into it. Any questions so far as I get my iPad set up? Okay, so let me just connect my iPad. So the first most important thing when you're doing something like this is to create a reference for yourself. So that's what I did. You can try to do it from memory, but it's never going to be as effective. So what I did to create the reference for this animation is I took some pictures of my wife sitting in this position from different angles. All right, let's jump over to the iPad. Okay, so this looks like a jumbled mess because these are a bunch of layers on top of each other. But let me just play back what I did here. Okay, so I have these images I took of my wife. You can see I'm kind of tracing over them. This is just to help me understand like what it looks like from this angle, right? It's just easier to make a reference and then copy that reference. So I made it from all these different angles, from the 3/4 angle, and then you'll see later down here in the bottom left corner, I've got her from the side. So now I've got these 4 little sketches that then I just animated really quickly in Procreate, and then I exported the video in to place into After Effects. So then when I okay, so in After Effects, here's what I ended up with in After Effects. Let's zoom in on that. I just ended up with this really sketchy animation. I don't know what happened with the keyframes there. But basically this is my reference, right? And it's like 3 frames per second. I'm just using it as a guide. So, and then I had to animate the scale and position a little bit because my little sketches weren't exactly the same size. And it's doing something weird. Something happened to the animation and it is really weird. Okay. Cool. All right, so I'm gonna just go through how I created the legs right now using this this reference. It's a little too big. Let's bring up the Okay. Okay, is everything making sense so far? Okay, so what I use to animate the legs is a little tool called Limber, which you can see over here. This little tool I love for creating my characters because it allows me to do foreshortening, and I'll demonstrate that here in a second. We'll also be using Duik for some of the animation, but for the limbs, I just use Limber. If you guys want to check out Limber, I have a link down in the description. You can go check it out. It's one of my favorite tools for doing character animation. So, and one of the reasons why I love Limber is because Limber is very proactive at making you label your layers. So when I hit new to create a new leg, you'll see right here, it's already asking me to name my limb. So I'll name it left. And some people like to label their limbs left and right according to the character that they're making. So in this case, this limb would be the right limb because it's the character's right limb. I don't like doing that. I just like labeling it according to whatever is left for me. So that's why I labeled this the left limb. Okay, so I'm going to go actually to the start, and I'm going to go here and kind of line it up roughly. And then with Limber over here, you can go over and you have all these controls. Hopefully you guys can see that. All these controls over the length of each segment of the leg. And in fact, let me just divide up these segments so you can see it easier. So your leg's broken into two segments, right? You have a top segment and a bottom segment. And so we can control the length of these. And then we can control the size of each end and in the middle of our limb. So I'm actually going to reset that. So we have this limb. So now I'm going to just kind of place it along the animation. And so I'm going to bring the end size up, and I'm going to bring the middle. And again, I'm going to make it so we can easily see that. And I'm bring the rounding. That rounding is not essential because I'm not actually going to use it in the final animation, but it just helps me kind of visually understand the direction that the limb is going. Okay, so I'm going to actually bring the So right now I'm trying to make the limb look like it is kind of extending towards the camera. So the end of the limb is going to be a little bit bigger than the hip, or the ankle is going to be a little bit bigger than the hip. Then I'm going to go to the, first I'm going to mark all that down with some keyframes. So I just created some keyframes over here to mark down the end, middle, start, lower length, upper length. And then down on my timeline, I'll just hit U to bring up all the keyframes for that layer. And I'm going to go to where it's going to end the rotation. And I'm also going to hit P to bring up the position of the hip so that I can animate the hip. And I'm also going to animate the position of the ankle. And I grab these position keyframes and line them up at the beginning. So this is where it's going to start, and then this is where it's going to end. And I'm simply just going to move these to where they need to go. Okay, so right now this doesn't look right, but then on this second position, we're going to actually bring down the length of each segment, and we're going to make the rounding the other way. Okay, end size. And there's no exact science to this, but you just kind of eyeball it. Okay. So the other thing is we have it bending right now, right? So there's a few things we can do to fix that. The first thing is that in animation, you need to animate on arcs. So for the position keyframe of the ankle, I'm going to kind of create an arc here. Because if we were really rotating around a character, their ankle's going to kind of move in an arc. Like if we look at this reference, right, that was based off of a photo I took. If you look at the ankle, it doesn't move straight across. It kind of arcs down like this as it progresses, right? It's now down here, and it goes like that. So we need to replicate that with our animation, but we're still bending right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit U on my keyboard to bring up my keyframe properties. And Kzoos, I will be saving this video. So anybody, just as a reminder, this stream will be uploaded for those who can't watch it for the whole time and want to go back and watch it. It will be up, so don't worry about that. But okay, so we have this issue where it's bending in the middle. I'm just going to simply keyframe the length of my limb so that it goes whoosh. Edward, I do have a video about Limber. Not a full tutorial, but I do have a video about what I like about Limber and all the different functionalities of it. And part of the reason why I don't have a full tutorial is that Limber is so easy to use that it doesn't, I don't know. You know, I spend more time making tutorials for things like Duik because Duik is a really useful tool, but it is kind of complicated to learn. So I spend most of my time making tutorials for Duik. That's why I say my last video on Limber was more about just kind of what you can do or how Limber makes character rigging and animation simpler without really getting into the weeds of how to use it, because it's so easy to use that you really don't need a full tutorial. Also, AE Scripts is where you buy Limber. Link in the description if you guys want to go check it out. And they, on their channel, have a lot of tutorials on how to use Limber. So if you want to check that out. If you're not using Limber, it's not free like Duik. Duik is kind of like a donation-based tool. If you find Duik useful, I do encourage you to donate to the guy who makes that. But it is a tool that he doesn't charge money for, so it's a little bit easier to start with. But it is a very feature-rich tool that it can be kind of hard to learn. So anyway, I love Limber for this kind of stuff especially. So anyway, I'm going to keep going on this. The other thing too is that the hip, not the heel. I kind of want that to also arc a little bit. We'll see what that does. So right now I'm just trying to get rid of it bending. I just want it to continue being straight. So another thing I can do is just go like that. Go like, that's pretty good, right? Okay, and then I'm gonna just add some easing onto it. We'll see how that feels. So, oops, I meant to turn that off. Okay, how's this feel? It's good. There's like a little thing where it goes up at the end, so I'll just adjust this so it just kind of feels like it comes more into play. Still kind of feels like it does that, and I can't play with this too much. All right, that looks pretty good. That's a pretty good base. Okay, so now I'm gonna copy this easing. Also, this is another tool that I love to use. It's Copy Ease, because it just copies your motion curves. It's like one of my most used tools. Oh, we got a weird thing happening. It's kind of bending there. So we're actually going to place this keyframe right there. And like that. Okay, we got one leg down. Let's do the second leg. So on this one, I'm going to show you another kind of method that I use when I'm animating, which is I start from the end position. I kind of work backwards. So for this other leg, I'm actually going to stop at the end of, I'm going to start at the end of the rotation and animate backwards. We'll see if it works out. So I'm going to go over here to Limber and I'm going to hit New. And again, one of the reasons why I love Limber is it's encouraging me, it's being proactive about me labeling my layers. So I'm going to label this one right, and then Limber automatically adds the appropriate labels to the controller. So right ankle, right hip, right leg. I know exactly what layers I'm dealing with. Okay, so let's get started on this one. So I'm going to move it in position, and you know what I'm actually going to do? This is another thing that I love about Limber. Is I'm going to select one of the layers that has to do with the left leg, whether it's one of the controller layers or it's the actual shape layer itself. And I'm going to come over to Limber, and I'm going to hit Copy, and then I'm going to select one of the layers of the right leg. So in this case, the right ankle I have selected right here. And I'm going to go back to Limber and hit Paste. And now it's pasted all the same attributes of my left limb to my right limb. So I just move this into place. And it's not going to like be exactly what I need, but it saved me a lot of work from having to adjust everything. So right here, just like we did with the left leg, I'm going to come up here to this little panel and I'm going to mark everything with the keyframe because I'm marking that frame. It's like that's where I want this animation to end on. Then I will come to the first frame, and this is where I will adjust this, all my parameters here until, and this one, because it's going away from the camera, we actually want the ankle to be smaller. I'm going to zoom in here so you can see exactly what I'm doing. Kind of estimating where the hip is, where the knee should be. Okay. One thing right now is that my right leg actually needs to be below my left leg. Cool. Anybody have any questions? Make sure you're hitting me up with those questions. If not, I'll just keep rolling. But all right. So now let's check out this animation. Make sure it's working great. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to animate the position. So let's put that back. Okay. And then animate the position. Okay. So you can see it's starting to come together, right? Starting to come together. But just like with the other leg, we got to adjust the curve. So this one, I'm actually going to have it kind of curve way out here. And I don't know if that's going to work. We'll see. We'll see. Now what's going on with the hip? We want the hip to... I'm going to throw a ease on there. Yeah, the hip looks fine. Looks like it's moving with the other hip, right? And then we'll throw an ease on the position keyframes of the right ankle. We'll see what this looks like. Oops. Actually, I'm going to throw an ease on all the keyframes. See how that looks. I actually want it to kind of go out like this and then come in. One thing I'm going to do for this animation is I'm going to turn this keyframe right here into a rove across time keyframe because I don't want it to affect the easing. I want the easing to be determined by these two keyframes, this one and this one. And so I just want it to go right past that keyframe. I don't know if that'll work out, but we'll see. It might be too extreme of a curve. Nah, let's not do that. Actually, I think we will adjust. There we go. That's what's going on. Okay. And then so make it kind of follow the reference. Not exactly, but you know, trying to keep it close. And oops. All right, I think that looks pretty good, actually. Let's turn off the reference. Oops. I always solo the reference. I want to turn the reference off. All right, let's see how that looks. I think that looks pretty good. You kind of see how it's coming together. Now, when I add the shoes in, that's going to make it sell it even more. In fact, I kind of want to make sure this first frame is a little bit more exaggerated in the way it looks. Another thing you can do with Limber is you can reduce the size of your controller so you can actually see what you're working with here. Seriously, guys, if you haven't tried Limber, you should go try it. You don't need to purchase it. You can go try it on AE Scripts, and they have a 7-day free trial. It's an awesome tool. Aaron, I don't know, man. I don't know. Yeah, that walk cycle video is okay. It's really rushed, so it's kind of more for people who kind of know their way around After Effects, which might be you. And you know, I'm planning on doing a more in-depth tutorial on walk cycles in the future, but okay, so we got our leg animation. It's not perfect. If I were just not doing this live, I would probably spend some more time working on this. But I want to move on to how I created the shoes, because I think that is where there's a lot to talk about and a lot to learn. And for the shoes, we're going to be using Duick to make the shoes. Richard has a question. Here's a question. Have you ever wished for a tool like Limber that is actually 3D, like actual 3D limbs and even fingers and toes inside of AE? It's a good question. Not really, because I think if you want something that's 3D, you might as well just animate in 3D. Yo, Aaron, thanks for subscribing, by the way. You just subscribed. Yeah, I don't know. I think if I want to do 3D characters, I just do it in 3D. There is a guy named Tony Babel who has some videos on using Element 3D, which is a plugin for After Effects that is kind of it brings 3D into After Effects. It's not as fully featured as like a 3D suite like Cinema 4D or Blender, but and he shows how you can make 3D characters with Element 3D. So if you are interested in that, you can go check him out. Tony Babel, Babel. He also makes incredible animations, like just like stuff that you would never have known is even possible to do in After Effects. It's crazy. Okay, so let's move on to the shoe. Let me just connect up my iPad again because we're going to be going through how I created the shoe in Illustrator. Again, thanks everybody for joining in. Hopefully you've learned a little bit so far, but I think this shoe part is really, yeah, Andrew, Tony Babel, his stuff's incredible. His style is just legendary. Hey, we got a new subscriber, Chris. Welcome to the channel, Chris. I don't know if you're watching right now, but sorry, pulling up my app that does the screen mirroring for my iPad so you guys can see what I'm doing. Thanks again, everybody, for joining. This is fun. I like this. I like your guys' questions. Again, if you have questions, hit me up in the chat. I'm happy to answer the questions. I want to do more of these live streams, so if you guys are enjoying this, please let me know, because I spent about 20-ish hours making this animation, and I had a lot of people saying, hey, make a tutorial, make a tutorial, make a breakdown, make a breakdown. And after spending 20 hours making the animation, spending another 20 hours making a tutorial about it is like, you know, it's a lot of time to dedicate to this kind of stuff. So I'm hoping that I can do these live streams every once in a while. It's not going to replace all the tutorials that I'm doing, but every once in a while, I'm hoping that I can do these live streams that take a lot less time, and I can break down these animations for you guys. And it's fun. Plus, I can answer your questions in real time if you have them, because I know how annoying it can be when you ask a question in the YouTube comment section and it goes unanswered. Even though I do try to answer all the questions that people leave in my comment section, but on some videos there's so many. And plus, like, I can only get so detailed in a comment section and explaining things. It's easier to show what I'm explaining. So hopefully these live streams are something that people are interested in. Okay, so here I am in Illustrator on my iPad. Excuse the watermark for Reflector 4. I didn't want to purchase it until I went through this live stream, so I'm going to try to keep things out from behind that, but apologies for that watermark. If I continue to do these live streams, I will be getting rid of that by purchasing the app. Okay, so I sketched out, okay, first of all, I have to say that of anything I did on this animation, figuring out how to animate the shoes and the perspective shift of the shoes was definitely the hardest. Because at first I was just trying to wing it. I was using joysticks and sliders. If you're familiar with joysticks and sliders, basically you keyframe 5 different poses: straight on, tilted to the right, tilted to the left, tilted up, tilted down. You keyframe that, and then you can rig it up to a little shape layer that you can then use to animate the thing moving around, and it kind of provides that kind of faux 3D look. It's actually very similar to how 3D rigs are set up. Anyway, so I tried that, didn't work. Eventually, I actually ended up, and you can see right here, I eventually started just to take some reference photos of my shoe, and just so I could get in my brain kind of the shape of a shoe. Sometimes, you know, I'll wing it. It's, you know, and it just doesn't turn out how I want it to turn out. So Yeah, this is what we ended up with. This is the end result of my sketching and kind of deciding what the shoe shape is going to be. Okay, and the reason why I'm doing this on the iPad Illustrator app and not on my computer, we will be jumping to the computer, but I like the pencil tool in the iPad Illustrator, this guy right here, because for certain shapes like this, it just makes it really easy to trace over things. So that's what we're going to be doing. But before we trace, I'm going to create a new layer. And we can label this layer, come on, shoe. For some reason, my typing is not working. Shoe bottom. So the shoe is going to be made up of 3 layers. It's going to be made up of the bottom, the side of the sole, and then the rest of the shoe. Okay. So we're going to make the bottom first. So let me zoom in here. And I'm going to choose like a red. Doesn't really matter what color you choose at this point because you're just going to be changing it later. Hey, Mikhail. I hope I'm saying your name right. Thanks for joining. Mikhail, if you want to see how I animated the legs, I'll be putting this video up later so you can go back and watch that. Thanks for joining, man. Okay, so I'm just going to trace this bottom of the shoe. And it's not exact. It doesn't have to be exact. And I'm actually going to turn off the stroke. Okay, so I have the bottom of the shoe all traced out. Look at that. We're really making progress here. Okay, so let me just break this down real quick. I have 2 points right here. I have this point and this point. And I'm going to decide that those 2 points are going to be my top and bottom. Obviously, that's the bottom of the shoe. That's the top of the shoe. Now, what I want to do is I want to make sure the points on the side. Let me just illustrate this. The points down this side and down this side, there's same number of points between the top and the bottom. Hopefully that makes sense. So right now, you can see there are way more points on this side, whereas there's only a couple points on this side. And because I've done this before, I know that I want 3, I guess they're called anchor points in Illustrator, 3 anchor points on either side of the shoe, on either side of the top and bottom anchor points. So I'm going to just go ahead and delete some of these that I know I don't need. And actually, I don't like that. 3, we don't need this one. Okay. So now you can see, let me just do a line down the middle here. Make this nice and thick so you guys can see it. Okay. So now if I look at this on either side of this line, not counting this point and not counting this point, I have 3 points on either side. Now, why am I pointing this out? Because when we morph shapes in After Effects, having the same number of points in total and on each side, it just makes it really easy. Okay, so I'm just going to refine this shape a little bit since I deleted some of the points. And I'm actually going to just refine this. And if you want, you can actually turn down the opacity so you can see what you're doing and what you're tracing. Oops. Having a hard time with that. Okay, I moved this point down because I kind of want it to correspond to this one. Not super crucial, but sometimes when you have a really wonky point, you can just get rid of the Bezier and then redo it. Like this one has a way longer handle on one side. Just do that, do that. Okay, Taco Back Runner, love that name, asks, is it possible to get the same animation with the puppet rigging? Or is it easier for frame animation? I'm guessing you mean frame by frame animation. I find it hard to know when to use frame animation versus puppet rigging. Taco Back Runner, are you talking about the puppet pin tool? Because I'm going to be frank that most of the time, if you're doing character animation, you shouldn't be using the puppet pin tool. You should be using something like Limber or Duik or something like that. Or if you really want to use the puppet pin tool, there are certain situations where you'd want to use it. Use it in conjunction with Duik or with some kind of tool that gives you IK rigging. Another tool is the puppet pin tool, or no, it's called puppet tool. So puppet pin is what comes with After Effects. And then there's a tool that you can get from AE Scripts that is the puppet pin tool, just called the puppet tool. I hate that it has the same similar name. But what that does is that creates these null layers that your puppet pins are attached to, and then you can rig those null layers in a IK so that one becomes the controller, and then you can bend the limb. And anyway, I have a video about it. I have a video that compares all the different character rigging tools. You can go watch it on my channel, and I talk about that one a little bit so you can see more of what I'm talking about. You can also do the same thing with Duik. You can use bones with Duik. And yeah. So anyway, puppet pin tool or the puppet pins, not really possible to answer your question. Not really possible to do this kind of animation with the puppet pin tool. You got to use something like Limber. Limber is the only tool I know of that could do something where it's kind of like this 3D perspective shift. Just because Limber gives you control over so much of what the limb looks like, the top, the length of the thigh versus the calf, and then also the thickness of the knee, the ankle, and the hip. The fact that you can keyframe all those makes an animation like this possible. I suppose you could maybe try to do something with Duik, but it would take a lot more work. Yes, Richard, foreshortening. Creating foreshortening and the shift between foreshortening. Yeah, so anyway, I think I've pretty much answered that question. Mikhail, yes, this stream will be on my channel later. I know you missed the first little bit, so you can go back and watch it. On either side of those points, we want to have the same number of points. So we have 3 on the left, 3 on the right, and that makes up those that shape. And like I said, because I've done this before, I knew that I could get away with doing this whole thing with 3 points on each side. And we ultimately want to have 8 points in total for all 3 layers of that make up the shoe. Again, my shoe is going to be made up of the bottom layer, the side layer here, and then the shoe layer. All right, so I'm going to get rid of this line because we don't need it anymore. You guys get it. All right, so now to make this side of the sole of the shoe, I'm not going to retrace the side. I'm going to come up here to the shoe bottom layer, and I'm going to just duplicate it if I can get it to go. Now, if you are ever creating a rig like this, we're going to be using Duik for the foot, And if you ever create a rig like this, if you follow what I'm doing here in this exact method, it'll work out flawlessly for you, and I'll show you that. But a lot of times there are going to be certain things that certain issues you're going to run into, and this is why I wanted to focus on the foot for this live stream, because this is a common thing that you'll run into all the time when you're trying to animate the path of something. So I've got a duplicated layer. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the color to maybe like a darker red. And then I'm going to turn down the transparency a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to take this new layer. Now, these 3 points on this side, I'm not going to touch. I'm just going to take these points over here and line them up with the sole of the side of the sole. Capiche? Okay, awesome. So there we go. Now to make the shoe, the top of the shoe, I don't know what you call that. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to duplicate. Let's just duplicate the shoe side. And actually, I'm going to rename this to sole side. Okay, and then I'm going to duplicate that. And maybe let's rename this to shoe top. Show top. Shoe top. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. And then just like with the sole side, I'm not going to touch these points. I'm just going to take this and trace this. It looks pretty good, right? And I'm going to bring this shoe top and put it on the bottom. And I'm going to change the color to like a blue. Oops. I renamed the wrong layer. What did I do? Okay, we're going to back up. Okay. I renamed the wrong layer, so we're going to do that again. Oh, Dave King just subscribed. It's awesome. Dave, if you're watching, thanks for joining. If you're not, that's okay. Cool. Okay. I think we got it right now, even though my layers are incorrectly labeled. So for the shoe top, I'm going to just change the color and I'm going to put it underneath. And then I'm going to restore the opacity to 100%. Boom. Okay, let me zoom out here. So that is our shoe. Now I'm going to create these other 2 perspectives. So I'm going to take the bottom, which is actually labeled sole side, And I'm going to just relabel it bottom. And I'm going to duplicate that layer and move it over. And the reason why I'm duplicating the layer and not just retracing it is because I want to maintain the same number of vertex points or anchor points that make up the shape, because that will make it so that it blends correctly in After Effects. Benibo, thanks for subscribing. And thanks for joining the live stream. Benibo says nice. Cool, cool, cool. Thanks again, everybody, for joining. This is the first time I've ever live streamed, so I hope it's going okay and you guys are learning. But I do want to make this a regular thing because I think it's a good opportunity to ask questions and to learn and to see how other people do things. So yeah, it's cool. I like it. I remember when I was learning how to edit. Palak just subscribed. I was learning how to edit, and the way I learned is I just sat over my buddy's shoulder and watched him edit, and I saw how he did things. So that's how I essentially learned how to use Final Cut 7 at the time. This is back when I was in high school. So this is kind of like looking over my shoulder, seeing how I'm doing it, except that you're not actually looking over my shoulder like a creep. Okay. And I realize that this layer, I think, is slightly opaque, or transparent rather. Okay, so I've created that center thing. Now I don't need to do that for the other two shapes, and that'll make more sense why when we jump into After Effects. But now I'm going to do the same thing, but for this perspective. Oh, we have like a little shape over here that's bothering me. Okay. Okay, so if you're just joining, let's just review real quick. Let's jump over to After Effects. Yee. Okay, so what we're doing right now is we're creating the rig for this foot animation to do the shift in the foot. So that's what we're doing right now. That's why we're in on the iPad in Illustrator for the iPad, and we're just creating the shape layers for this. Okay. Pretty much there. And again, like we did with the first perspective, this guy over here, we're going to just duplicate that layer. And I'm going to copy that color. And then I'm going to line this up. Oops. Sheesh. There we go. Gonna line it up here. Wow, that was really easy. Okay, and then I'm gonna duplicate that layer again. And for this one, we're gonna take the color from eyedropper so we know what layer we're working with here. And normally I would go relabel all these layers, but just for time, I'm not going to. Sorry. Okay. We're almost done here in Illustrator. Boom. Okay. Now I'm just going to reorder these layers. And crank that opacity back to 100%. Okay, we are done. So this is what it looks like in Illustrator. So we're going to be using these shapes. We're going to bring them over to After Effects, and we're going to animate them. Now, could you do this all in After Effects? Yes, you could draw these in After Effects. I just personally like to use Illustrator to draw my vector layers. So that's why I'm doing this. And I'm using the iPad just because I like to draw with the pencil. But we are going to jump to Illustrator on the computer. So let me just make sure I've got that all set up and ready to go. Yeah, I do. Okay. Let me refresh the track. Any questions so far? I mean, this is all pretty straightforward. Let me just review again before we jump over to... Actually, we could just jump over to Illustrator on the computer. Okay, so this is the file that I just made. Oh, no, it's not. It's not updated yet. Well, we are going to actually just use... Okay, we'll just use this one. It's the same thing. It was just what I made when I was running through it. Okay, so to review real quick. Right here we have... So this path has 8 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have a point on the bottom, point on the top, and on either side of those 2 points, we have 3 points because every single shape that makes up every single part of this shoe, whether that's the bottom, the side of the sole, or the top, all has the same number of shape or points. You don't have to do it this way. This is just like the way I did it to, or the way I wanted to show you how to do it to run into the least amount of problems when you actually rig everything up. The reason why you want the same number of points is because we're going to be animating between these different perspectives, and you just have funky things that happen if one keyframe has 9 points and the next keyframe has 8 points. It just screws everything up. So I'm going to put away my iPad real quick. I should have got some water. Okay, this is the part of the breakdown that I think is the most important and the coolest part, and part of what sells the animation the most. So the first thing is we need to bring these shapes over into After Effects. So I have a little blank composition here, and we got to bring them over. So let's jump over to Illustrator again, and we're going to use a little plugin that I like to call Overlord, which you can see it, but for whatever reason the screen capture software that I'm using doesn't actually show you the windows. So let me real quick. There you go. This is what Overlord looks like. I have a link in the description if you want to check out Overlord. Overlord is just, it's freaking crazy, dude. It is the best way to take artwork from Illustrator to After Effects. So if you haven't ever used Overlord and you animate a lot of shape layers, you got to get Overlord. So watch this. All I have to do is grab this shape, hit this button, and then when I go over to After Effects, boom, there's my shape. I don't have to save the Illustrator file, import it into After Effects, put it in my timeline, convert to shapes, and then the gradients don't work, even though I'm not using a gradient on this. I just hit that button and boom, I've got a shape layer, and we can name that shoe bottom. Boom. How great is that? So we're going to go back over to Illustrator, and we're going to bring over the other two shapes that make up our shoe. And then we'll head back over to After Effects, and we got this, and it looks weird because they're not in the right order. Okay, look at that. I've got my shoe here. Mikhail, the transitions between AI and AE are so sweet. Thanks, man. I spent a little bit of time on those. Okay, so now we're ready to create this rig that's going to allow us to animate between the perspectives of the shoe being tilted to the left and then over to the right. So here's how we're going to do that. We're going to start with the shoe bottom, and we need to add a keyframe to the path position. Now I have this little tool right here that I can use to add a keyframe to the path, so that I can just hit U and bring up the path property. If you want to do it in a quick way and you don't like going like this, you know, usually you'd have to like, these are already all open, but let's just pretend that they're not. You're like, okay, I gotta go get the path, hit the contents, hit the group, hit the path. Okay, there we go. I can, you know, I'm gonna show you a little shortcut. Select your layer, select one of the points on the path, hit, oh, sorry. I got one of the points on my path selected, hit SS, brings up the path. So what SS does is it just, it brings up the property that you last selected. So if I selected the position of the path within the shape layer, it would bring up that. So that's a really useful shortcut. All right. So anyway, got to create a keyframe here, and the way that so we're going to be using Duic connectors to create this rig, and the way that Duic connectors work is you can tie a property of something, so in this case the path property, and you can tie it to the property of another thing. So as you modify that property, it will animate between the keyframes of this property. So this will all make sense as I set it up, but basically we're going to have 3 keyframes that make up our animation here. We're going to have a keyframe for the right, which is the perspective that we have right here, this keyframe. Then we are going to have a keyframe right here in the middle, which will represent this middle perspective. Let me get rid of Overlord. This middle perspective. And then we'll have a keyframe here on the first frame, which will represent this perspective, right? And then we'll create a link to another layer that will allow us to animate all 3 layers using that. It all makes sense, I promise. So we're just going to add a keyframe here on the 3rd frame for these other 2 layers. And so just like I did here, I'm going to add a keyframe for the path and a keyframe for the path. So now if I hit U, I can bring up all my keyframes, and we have that all set. That's all done. We can move on to the middle one. So now I'm going to go back to Illustrator, and this time I'm not actually going to use Overlord. Tiger, I'm not sure which plugin you're asking about, because I've used quite a few during this. So let me know, and I'd be happy to answer that. So instead of using Overlord to bring over this shape, this middle perspective, because what will happen is Overlord will actually just create a new shape layer, which I don't need to use. Or I don't need a new shape layer. I want to paste the information onto the current layer. So what I'll do is I'll just select the path, hit Control C, and then when I go over to After Effects, I'll just make sure that that same layer is selected, and I've got the path property selected, and then hit Control V. And that will just paste the path property to that layer. And then again, I'll go back to Illustrator. I'll grab this one over here, hit Control C, go back to After Effects, go to the first frame, and hit Control V, making sure that my path property here is selected, because what will happen if it's not selected and you hit Control V, it will paste it onto a mask. And we don't need a mask. We want it to be pasted onto the path property. So believe me, I made that mistake. Mikhail, yes, that is, this guy over here is the tool that I had made a while back. It's called Take Shape. It's just a few little quick things. A lot of these things are actually going to become, in the next version of After Effects, a lot of the tools built into here are going to become redundant, because the next version of After Effects is going to have a properties panel that will allow you to access the properties of a shape layer directly. I built this tool because I wanted to be able to like control the position of a shape group within a shape layer, or the scale, or the rotation, stuff like that, without having to twirl open a bunch of menus on the timeline. So what this does is it just adds a keyframe to those properties, and then I can hit U and open it up. But the next version of After Effects is going to solve that. So yeah. And then it's got some other things like merge paths, which I don't know, might be useful to some people. I had planned to like give this out, but there's still some bugs. Anyway. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing for the other shapes. So when I was on the iPad, I said I didn't need to make the other two shapes into this shape, because what I can do here is I can actually just copy this keyframe and paste it to this, and then I'll just line up these paths to the bottom of the shoe. And because we use the first shape to make our other shapes, when we rotate the shoe, it'll just look like it's rotating. That's why I say, like, when I was drawing out the shapes, instead of drawing each shape 3 times, just duplicate your shape layer and then modify it. When I first did this, I did draw each perspective over and over, and it caused a lot of issues that I'm hopefully going to help you guys avoid. So, okay, now we need to do this perspective. So I'll go back over to Illustrator, and I'm going to copy this shape right here. Control C, go back to After Effects. Sorry, we're jumping back and forth a lot here. And paste that. And I'm going to line up, because remember how I said we weren't going to touch this edge. Sheesh, that's all spaces, by the way, that big white rectangle. So we're just going to line up this left edge, because remember when I was on the iPad, I didn't touch these 3 vertex points because I want them to always line up. All right, and then we just need to do it for this last shape layer. So we'll go back over to Illustrator. We'll copy and we will paste it. Again, making sure that I have my path selected, paste it, and then I'll line it up. Boom. Now, I'm just going to grab these 3 layers and put them in the center. Now, if I scrub through these, you see, that's what it's going to look like. So it's not going to be that choppy, because we're going to tween between the 3 perspectives. So, one last thing I want to do before I rig everything up is I'm going to actually grab these shapes, and I'm going to start with this this shape right here, and I'm going to move it over, because right now when it rotates, it's not I want it to feel like it's rotating around the ankle. So I'm going to just adjust the position of everything. Now notice that I am grabbing the path. I'm grabbing the path here and not moving the position of the shape layer itself, right? If I bring up the position property and I move this around, see how the position property is not changing? Because I'm actually just moving the path itself. Now you could move the position, but then you'd have to keyframe the position, and that's just more keyframes to link up to our control layer. And I don't want to do that. I want to keep things simple, so I'm just moving the path. So I'll do the same thing for this path and this path. And I started with this blue layer because I can see kind of where the ankle is. So I'll do the same thing for this other keyframe. Cool. All right. Now, if we scrub through it, oh, the center layer is off. So you want the center layer to be on. Oops. There we go. How's that look? Okay. All right. So I just renamed this bottom layer to shoe top. Okay. Now we get to rig everything up, and this is where hopefully it's going to blow your guys' minds. To create my slider kind of rig, we're going to use a connector from Duik. Where is Duik? There it is. Ba-dam! There we are. We're going to use the connector. So I'm going to create a slider that's going to control the animation of this foot. And with my shoe selected, this layer, I have that layer selected because I kind of just want to use that layer's name as the name for my slider. So I'll go back over the Duik and I'll click on this little slider icon, which will create two layers right here, which represent this little slider here. Boom. This little slider. And right now it's not rigged up to anything, so it doesn't do anything. But now I can rig up the keyframes. These three keyframes, I can rig them up to that slider with the connector. So as I move that slider back and forth, it will animate between these three keyframes. Mr. Riz, hi, good morning. Where are you joining us from? Mr. Riz. Okay, so let's connect this baby up. So all I have to do to connect this up is hit this connect properties with my properties selected. So I have to have these properties selected. That's how Duik knows what I'm trying to connect up. And then I know I'm connecting it to the slider because the slider name is right here. So I have the properties loaded in. If you don't have the properties loaded in, you just select the layer or the property you want to connect it to and hit property, and it will load the minimum and maximum properties in here, and then you can hit connect. So watch what happens when I hit connect properties. It's going to work its magic, and all of a sudden, even though my scrubber is on the first frame, which if you remember represents when the shoe is tilted this way, even though I'm on this first frame, it's not changing because now the animation between these, hey, look at that. So as we go back and forth, it animates between these. Now this works well because all three of these shape layers have the same number of vertex points, and they have the same, those vertex points are kind of laid out the same way around the shape layer. So there you go. It works. Now, here's where I really want to emphasize. If you follow what I just did in Illustrator exactly, and you do that exactly, it's going to work like this. However, I want to show you a couple of things that you might run into when you're doing this. So let me just hide my screen real quick. And hit me up with any questions if you guys got them while I'm getting this all set up to show you kind of some of the things that happen when you do this that can kind of throw everything off. Thanks again, everybody, for who's joined in. Hopefully you guys are learning something. Hopefully I'm showing you something you don't already know. And if I'm not, I apologize. Okay, let me just change a couple things here. Where's everybody joining from? Let's do that while you guys are waiting for me to set this up. Hit me up in the chat. Let me know where you're watching from. Okay, almost done here. Taco Back Runner AZ, is that Arizona? Nice. San Francisco, Bay Area. Mark from Montana. Nice. What's the weather like up in Montana right now? From Thailand. Wow. Been to Thailand twice. It's a nice place. Very humid. Sunny and cold. It's like where I'm at too. I'm down in Utah, so not too far from you. Awesome. Okay, I'm ready to show you what some of the issues that you might run into. Let me just make sure that I've screwed this up properly. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I may have screwed it up too much. Okay, I'm going to show you what I just did. Look at this. Does anybody know what's happening? Anybody know what I just did wrong? I didn't have the path property selected when I pasted this kind of messed up path. So it created a mask. You can see the mask here. So it's masking it. So let me delete that mask. Go back over here and paste. Okay. We are all set. Oh. Loa Hisham. Thanks for joining. Thanks for subscribing. Appreciate it. Okay. So, I kind of messed this up so I can show you guys some of the things that might happen as you're trying to morph between different keyframes on a shape layer. And this doesn't just apply to creating a rig like this in Duik. This also applies to anytime you're doing a shape morph, okay? So hopefully just by learning this, you'll be able to morph shapes like a pro and you'll never run into this issue. And okay, so watch what happens now when I try to animate between the things. What is going on with that shape? It's not transforming correctly. Does anybody know why it's doing that? Anybody know why it's doing that? It's because the path is not correct between each keyframe that we set up. So the way that After Effects draws a path is you have a starting and end point, and it's the same point. So to illustrate this, I'm going to actually turn this bottom shape layer. I'm going to add a stroke to it just to illustrate what I'm talking about here. Turn off the fill, crank that stroke up. And then I'm going to add a trim paths to this. Tiger, you're correct. The position of the first vertex is what's correct. It's not the only thing that's messing it up, but that is one of the reasons why it's doing that. So let me explain for everybody. Okay. If you ever used trim paths before, it's a very popular tool. If I pull back on the end, you'll see that it pulls back right here because this vertex is, let me get that anchor point out of the way. This vertex right here is set as the first vertex. Okay. So that's where it starts and ends. If I pull back on the start, it goes the opposite direction. Okay. So what After Effects, how After Effects is drawing the shape is it's starting from this point right here, and then it is drawing it in this direction. Okay. Now watch what happens. Let me just disable the expressions so that I can show you. By the way, if you ever have expressions applied to a shape path, you can't modify the shape path. You can't grab the points. You can't move the points because you have an expression. So you have to disable that expression before you can grab the points. If I re-enable these expressions and I try to go over here and I try to grab this point and move it, I'm not going to be able to. I have to disable those expressions first. And by the way, I'm using a little tool right here to quickly disable my expressions, but you can also go in here and just enable them. This is where you can do that. So we're going to leave them disabled for now because I want to show you here on this first keyframe, the first vertex is over here, right? You can tell because, I don't know if you guys can see that, but this vertex has a little circle around it. That's how you know it's the first one. So the first thing I need to do to fix this is I need to make the first vertex the same point on every single keyframe. So I'm just going to choose this top one. as the first vertex. And you can see how the trim path has shifted. So if I open up the trim paths, okay. So now if I go to the second frame now, okay, let me select the first vertex, okay, right here. Now if I go to the second frame, now the first vertex is over here and we want it to stay up here. So we just set first vertex over here. So right click, mask and shape path, set first vertex. Then we got to do that for the last keyframe too, which is already there. So we got lucky. So now let's re-enable the expressions and see if that fixes it. Fix it in that direction, but in this direction, it's still folding on itself. But it's not, it's folding this way, but it's not, at least it's not like folding down. So the reason that it's doing this is because of the direction in which the path is being drawn. On the middle keyframe, the path, let's see which way it's being drawn. We'll use this trim path. Okay. On this middle keyframe, the path is being drawn like this. It's being drawn here. So it starts here. It's being drawn like this. But on this other keyframe, if we play with the end, there's the end. So now it's being drawn this way. So that is why it's flipping. The direction of the path is flipping. Now, when I first ran into this, I thought, oh, I know how to fix that, right? If you go down to the timeline, there's this little button right here. And when you click this, it reverses the direction of the path. So watch as I click that button. Reversing the direction of the path. So I'm like, oh, easy. Reverse that direction. Should work now. Nope. It is still folding. So what we have to do is we actually have to go back to Illustrator and reverse the path in Illustrator. So let's go over to Illustrator. And this is another thing that really bothered me, is because in Illustrator you have this little attributes window, and this is where you reverse the path of something. You can also get the attributes by going here. And just a second, you guys can't see it. Just a second. There we go. So this little attributes window right here is where you can reverse the path. But I could not figure out for the longest time why it's grayed out when I select this path. Simple solution. I tried Googling it. Couldn't find anything. Till I magically just right-clicked on the path and said, make a compound path. All of a sudden, now I can reverse the path. So it was set to this. I'm just going to reverse it the other way, and I'm going to select the path, hit Control-C to copy it, and then I'm going to go back to After Effects. I'm going to go back to that first keyframe, and I'm going to hit Paste. And I've got to adjust the position, because remember we adjusted the position earlier. So I'm going to disable the expressions so that I can actually move the path, because again, you can't move a path when there's an expression applied. And I'm just going to make sure it lines up on that left edge. Now I will re-enable the expressions. And now, what? It's still not working. Well, because when I pasted this new path, it reset where the first vertex is. So we got to go back and we got to set the first vertex to be this top one right here. Right now it's at the bottom. That's why it's like flipping up. So we just need to set that first vertex again, re-enable that expression, boom. Now let's cross our fingers that it works. Okay, we're good in this direction and we're good in this direction. So now I can just get rid of that stroke and fill because I don't need to illustrate that anymore. Okay, boom. Now we got our rig, our little shoe rig. Any questions up to this point? Or am I just explaining this really well? You guys gotta have questions. Come on. So I'm gonna say this right now. In terms of Duik, so everybody knows Duik for character rigging, right? It's kind of like the most popular tool out there for making little character rigs. And there's a lot of alternatives, like Limber, which is what I use at the beginning of this tutorial. Limber is my preferred tool, but no matter what tool you have, you gotta have Duik installed, because outside of the IK auto rig feature of Duik, the connector with Duik is, I think, in my opinion, Duik's most useful tool. Honestly, the connector tool is probably what I use 95% of the time when I'm using Duik. I rig my characters in Limber, but I use that connector tool all the time. So, and we just use the connector tool to make a slider that controls the animation of the foot. But you can use the connector tool for all kinds of things. Like, seriously, the applications of the connector tool are limitless. At some point, I'm going to make a video that kind of goes over all the different ways I use the connector tool. Because one thing you can do is you can tie things to the rotation of your limb so that certain properties of an animation or of a shape or the scale, the position of something will automatically animate from one position to the next just by your limb rotating. Tiger, you say Duik and character rigging is so complicated for me. Yeah, it is. I mean, that's the thing about Duik. Duik is a really useful tool, but it is the most like... Okay, I'll just say this. Duik, in terms of the features, in terms of what all the different tools that Duik comes with, huge. All other tools pale in comparison. But Tiger, I might suggest if you want to get into character rigging and you find Duik to be really complicated, go look at Limber. There's a link in the description. You can go check it out. There's a 7-day free trial. It comes with all the... there's no limit to the features. You go check it out. Limber is just so easy to use. What I like about Limber is that it creates the limb for you. So you don't have to rig up. You don't have to know how to create character artwork and then how to rig it, because knowing how to create artwork to be rigged is a whole thing in and of itself, right? And then you have to know how to rig that stuff. So Duik is super useful. It's definitely something I use all the time. But like I said, for character rigging, I use Limber. But I use Duik for the connector, because you can use the connector with Limber too. So anyway, so let's jump back over to After Effects. And let's kind of finish off what I was going to go over. And then I'm going to jump off. But so now... So our goal is to kind of animate the legs here. Again, here's what we're animating just for everybody. And I got to go over to my preview because I set it to skip frames. So that's what we're going over. So here's what we have so far. And it's not exactly like I'm just rushing through this. I would take more time to finesse things. In fact, with this guy, I'm just going to extend him out a little bit. Boom. Cool. Now we're going to bring our shoe layer, shoe composition that we just made. And I don't even, oh, it's called Comp 3. No, it's not. It's called example comp. Okay. First thing is I'm going to attach it to the left. Actually, I'm going to start right here. I'm going to place it where I think it should go. I'm going to bring this anchor point and attach it to the ankle here. And then I'm going to parent it to the left ankle. This is my left ankle. Okay, another thing that I really love about Duik is that I can select this comp. I can come over here to Duik. And I can go over to the controller tab and hit extract. And it extracts that little slider that I made. And now I can animate the foot within, even though the foot is inside of this, this composition, I can animate it in this composition. So I can just move it to where I think it should be. Rotate it slightly. Let's animate this. Okay. My little like hotkey call out thing just like shows a bunch of space. Sorry about that. Okay. So we're going to animate. We're going to create. So this layer right here is my slider layer. I'm going to create a keyframe there. And then the sliders parented to this, so I can actually just unparent it so it's not moving with the shoe. Boom. Rotate the shoe a little bit. Keyframe the position. Keyframe the scale. Play this back. Boom. Okay, doesn't look too good right now. That's because the shoe layer doesn't have any. There we go. Boom. So I'm just animating the perspective of the shoe and animating it with the same motion curve as the leg. Boom. Looks pretty good. Our composition's a little small, so let's do like 21. Well, let's just do like 1200 by 1200, so we're not cutting off the shoe. Still kind of are, but you guys get the gist. So there you go. That's how I did it. Now, for the other foot, I'm not going to go through creating the other foot because we've already spent almost 2 hours, but I'll just show you what I did. So for the original animation, this other foot is separated into 2 different compositions, and one composition animates like this to this perspective, and then the next composition starts at that position and then goes like that. So it starts from this position, goes like that. The reason why I did that is I actually don't really remember, but I just broke it up because it seemed easier. So if we go back into the main thing, you have these two layers right here. This represents shoe, shoe 2. R shoe means right shoe, R shoe 2. And then I just parented that composition, these two compositions, to the left thing, keyframe the scale to animate correctly. So as it comes forward, boom. Now actually, while we're at it, I'll just show you another cool little thing about Duik. I'm hoping that this works. Ooh. Let's go back into this and let's paste my R shoe here. Okay. And then just like last time, we'll parent it to the right ankle this time. And since it's already got the scale and position keyframes, it's already kind of halfway there. I'm just going to keyframe the position. Oops, sorry guys. Okay. Maybe a little bit bigger to match the other shoe. Nah, I like that. So there you go. Boom. So essentially to create this, I did the exact same thing. I drew out the 3 different layers. I obviously stylized it later on, but there you go. And obviously this needs to be in the right order. Hey. Now it should technically be behind that, so I would just go to where it goes in front and maybe split that layer and then place this layer, this part of it, so it's behind the leg and then goes in front. Maybe even go in front this way. I don't know. I'd play around with it until it looked good. I might even like there we go. That looks better. Okay. That's it. We're at 1 hour and 56 minutes. So I'm going to cut it off there. Obviously there's more to this, like, you know, this front arm being in front and then being behind. Same thing, just kind of split the layer and put one layer above and below. For the head, I use joysticks and sliders to do the head turn. If you know about that, you know it's cool. I like joysticks and sliders. I originally, the thing I like about the Duik slider versus this joystick slider is that the DoX slider, you can do as many keyframes between, like you can set it up and connect it to animate between as many keyframes as you want. So for the shoe, for this, I'm only using 3 keyframes, but if I really wanted to like finesse the motion between each perspective, I could do 50 keyframes. So yeah, originally I tried to do the shoe with joysticks and sliders because I wanted it to be able to tilt like this, but also tilt forward and tilt back. And that's how joysticks and sliders works. But it just didn't look right, and it was more work than it was worth. But so yeah, and then I'll just go over some other things real quickly as we wrap up, like the torso. I just, it's just animating between. I just keyframe the path. Just animating the path and the position a little bit. Oops, I meant to do that. Right. So nothing too crazy. Again, the head is in its own composition here. This is the head. Pretty simple stuff. Yeah. Thanks everybody for joining. This was awesome. Thanks for those of you who asked questions. I'll stay on for a little bit to answer any other questions anybody has about this or just After Effects in general. It doesn't have to be about this. It could be about character rigging. Hold on to your butts. I need to learn Limber. Not sure how that tool works at all. Do I have to redraw my illustration limbs in Limber to rig it? No, you do not. So you can. So when I first started using Limber, so how Limber works is you just hit a button and it creates a working limb for you. In fact, I'll show you. Let's create a new composition. So if I go over to Limber here, let's open up Limber. Where is it? Okay, there it is. Okay. Limber, you just hit this new, hit OK, and you have this working limb. This could be an arm, this could be a leg. In this case, it's a leg, but yeah. There you go. You have something you can animate. You can start animating right away. Now, if you have character artwork that you want to rig up that's either you've designed or let's say you're working with a designer, you're making a little explainer video and you've got to recreate these characters with Limber. Limber also has the rig and pose feature, which if I have a video on my channel about Limber and the ways that I think it helps me save time, and I kind of go over rig and pose and how it works and how you set it up. So if you're interested in learning about Limber, go check out that video. I think it's 2 videos ago. You can go check out that video. And then also if you want to check it out and just play around with it, there's a little link in the description that'll take you right to the store page. If you do end up wanting to buy Limber and you want to help support the channel, use that link down in the description and I get like, I don't know, 15% of the sale, which amounts to like, I think $1 or something. I don't know, but it's probably more than that. I'm not good at math. Anyway, so Limber's huge. Yeah, the puppet tool. Hold on to your butts. Are you talking about the puppet tool add-on, or are you talking about the puppet pin tool that comes with After Effects? We'll see you later, Taco Back Runner. Thanks for joining. Thanks for staying for the whole thing. I really appreciate that. Daniel, I came in late. What tool was was it that where you set the vertex on the path? This guy right here, are you talking about? Tiger, I appreciate that. Shoot me a DM on Instagram if you have Instagram. There's my Instagram handle, and I'll get you a copy of it. Daniel, oh, just subscribe. Thanks, Daniel. Okay, so this tool right here is called Take Shape. It's a little tool that I had somebody... Oh, sorry, you guys can't even see it. This tool right here is called Take Shape. And it's a little tool that I had somebody build for me. And I was going to sell it, but the problem is the next version of After Effects is going to make a lot of the tools on it kind of useless, or redundant, I should say, not useless, redundant. So, yeah, I might, if people are interested, I could just give it away. But it's kind of cool though, because like if you create a shape layer, and let's say I want to animate like the position of this square within the shape layer. I don't want to animate the position of the shape layer itself. I just want to animate this position. Normally to do that, right, you go to your timeline, you have to open all these different things, and then you get to the position, right? Well, with the Take Shape, I had it built so that like I could just select the shape within the shape layer, and I can hit the position tool, and it adds a keyframe to that position. So now I can animate the position, except that didn't do it right because oh, I have to have this little box. Now if I select that, hit the position, now there's a keyframe on the position of the box within the shape layer. So now I can animate the shape in the transform position of the shape group and not the shape layer. So this is useful when you have one shape layer that has a bunch of different shapes on it, and you want to be able to animate all those different shapes individually. And I just hate opening all those little menus. So I had this tool just add a keyframe to the positions I want to animate, so I can just hit U on my keyboard and it just brings it right up. But in the next version of After Effects, and you can actually play around with this right now if you just go download the beta of After Effects, but there's a new panel called the Properties panel that gives you direct access to all those properties, so you don't need this tool anymore. So thanks again. See you guys next time. Keep an eye out on the channel. If you're not subscribed, make sure you're subscribed, because I'm coming out with more videos, more tutorials, stuff that you can watch on demand. Keep an eye out for this tutorial, this video. I will keep it up, so for those of you who jumped in halfway, you can go back and watch the first part. Daniel, oh, this was dope. Thanks, Daniel. I really appreciate that. I appreciate the kind words. Again, and also if you guys do go back and watch the VOD, let me know what questions you have so I can address them in the next live stream. I really want to do these live streams because I want to answer you guys' questions. So thanks again, everybody. Subscribe, like the video, all that jazz. Cool. And all the tools that I use, with the exception of my own tool, Take Shape, have links in the description. You can go check those out. So, word to your mother.